This is what it looks like for miles, just charred black grass with several areas starting to rekindle. They just set up this caution tape. That is something they do every time there is an execution. And we have new information this afternoon on how Rosendo Rodriguez III has been spending his last few days. Rosendo Rodriguez III was just executed. I've been in one of the witnesses' rooms. You'll start by taking the breathalyzer and then clasp down on the ends to activate the crystals inside. So where is LP&L going? Well, we're told the majority of LP&L will be here underneath this parking lot in a basement with administration upstairs in the tower. Council members say this project is not going to raise taxes.
We did this without raising taxes.
But we've learned that's not entirely true. And we have been here at the Republican Party headquarters for the last few hours. Gary has been out campaigning before this, so it's been a long evening. But you are leading with the early election numbers with 46%. We're still waiting for that last batch to come in. What are your thoughts right now? We're talking about a possible runoff. Last year, the Lubbock Animal Shelter received more than 9,300 animals and euthanized nearly 94% of them. I have an email pulled up here, and you can take a look at it from August 21st, where the PR consultant says, I still want to stay as benign as possible, and on my end, I'm working to load up media with as much other news items per elections info and other items to keep them as busy as possible as we head into early voting. So it sounds like you're trying to bury the pay raises.
Yeah, and I understand.
So the KCBD investigative team requested the number of calls Lubbock police received from these 13 motels. The city spent millions of dollars on body cameras for police officers, but it's footage you may never see. Is that giving too much power to the police department?
Maybe.
With 67% of precincts reporting, you're at 59%. Tell me what it took to get here. Certain city and county officials have responsibilities like setting the tax rate. Some even have the power to evict you. But what if I told you some of them aren't even paying their own property taxes?
The KCBD Investigates team has learned that over the past 2 years, the Lubbock Animal Shelter has euthanized more than 16,000 animals. Now that's more than 20 animals every day.
So how many animals is the shelter actually taking in every day, and what is the administration doing to lower the euthanasia number? Investigative reporter Shaley Sanders has the report.
I just seen him outside, and he was getting attacked by another dog, so that's why I got him.
Jackson Lehman says he found this little guy on the street in Slayton. So you have no idea who the owners are?
I have no idea. It's the first time I've ever seen him.
With no identification, Lehman decided to take the puppy here to the Lubbock Animal Shelter. It's the first time Lehman's been here. Do you know that this is a kill shelter?
I did not know that.
Stray dogs like this one with no identification are kept for 3 business days. Animals with a collar or microchip are kept for 10. After that, staff determines if the animal is adoptable. If it's not, it's euthanized. Shannon Torres is an animal control officer who helps with intakes like this one.
We processed the intake, basically putting the dog into the system. We did give the first round of shots. The puppy was covered in ticks, so I did go ahead and dip it for that. And then we put him in a secluded area to hopefully keep him healthy enough.
Torres says if the dog is healthy and no one claims him during those 3 business days, he will be put up for adoption. This puppy is just one of dozens of dogs and cats that occupy the kennels at the city shelter.
We're overpopulated with what we got now as far as the strays that we're picking up, and then just adding to that problem by bringing in owner-surrendered animals.
The KCBD Investigates team requested data from the Lubbock Animal Shelter for 2016 and 2017. Last year, the Lubbock Animal Shelter received more than 9,300 animals and euthanized nearly 94% of them. In 2016, they received more than 9,800 animals and euthanized nearly 75%. So, how do these numbers compare to other cities of similar size? Last year, the shelter in Amarillo received about 12,400 animals, and they euthanized nearly 33% of them. Plano received 5,400 animals and euthanized 12%. Irving took in just more than 5,300 dogs and cats and euthanized 13% of them. Garland received more than 7,000 animals and euthanized 22%. While the majority of the animals the Lubbock shelter receives are strays, the second highest number comes from owner surrenders.
My staff does not like the fact that I put this sign out here. And it says it's not a no-kill shelter. Owner-surrendered animals are the first to be euthanized if the shelter runs out of space. But still, our numbers for owner surrenders is still pretty high.
Last year alone, people turned over about 4,700 of their pets to the animal shelter, a place tourists said should be a last resort.
What we try to do is try to encourage people to go out and find a rescue group, try to rehome their animals before bringing them to the shelter.
The shelter does work with rescue groups like Dusty Puddles Dachshund Rescue to give these strays a better chance of finding a forever home.
I don't mind an injured one. If I can heal it and take it, it's going to get a home.
Cheryl Drury says she moved to Lubbock 9 years ago with the intention of opening a dachshund rescue, and she tries to save as many as she can.
The biggest thing is the seniors that breaks my heart. You know, they're 10, 12 years old, been with a family their entire life, and all of a sudden they're not wanted anymore.
Which is why she is always here, looking for dogs to rescue like this one.
Hey, this is Daisy.
Her 72 hours are up, and she needs a home.
See, we just rescued her. Come on, baby girl. There her is.
Drury is confident she can help.
Yeah, she'll have a home almost immediately.
And while Daisy's kennel is now empty, there are still dozens of others that are at capacity. So what is the shelter doing about this high number? Torres says they're going to take intake photos of every dog and cat the shelter receives and then post those pictures to their website and on social media. They are also working to simplify their volunteer process and host more adoption events. When it comes to the high intake number, Torres says the community needs to spay and neuter their pets and make sure they have identification so animals like this one don't end up here. We have received questions about what happens to the animals after they are euthanized at the shelter. That information is available online in our web story on kcbd.com and on our KCBD mobile app. We do have good news this evening. We have followed up with the Lubbock Animal Shelter to find out what happened to this puppy. Brown Paws Rescue is now fostering the dog until they can find a permanent home for him. Karen and Abner.
Thank you, Shaley. The KCBD Investigates team has a follow-up to a story we brought you last week. On Thursday, we introduced you to a homeless man who just within the past year racked up nearly $500,000 in medical bills he says he has no intention of paying.
So if he rips up his bills, who pays them? Investigative reporter Shaley Sanders joins us now with the answer.
It's like a book.
John Hawkins,
About that much of bills that I went through.
knows he owes a lot of money in hospital bills, but when it comes to a total,
I don't know how much I owe.
Hawkins tells us a fight with family landed him on the streets.
2.5 years on the street. I've been panhandling.
The KCBD Investigates team learned Hawkins' unpaid medical bills for last year alone amount to more than $450,000. Cost Hawkins tells us he just can't pay.
It's a substantial cost.
Eric Finley with University Medical Center says in 2015, the hospital absorbed roughly $64 million in unfunded care. That number grew to nearly $72 million in 2016. And despite a drop in unfunded care patients, Finley says the hospital expects to absorb more than $72 million this year. Finley says these are real dollars, actual costs paid by Lubbock County taxpayers and hospital profits.
We get about $20 million annually in property taxes from the residents of Lubbock County to offset that cost, but it doesn't offset all of it.
This continues to rise. Do you see property taxes going up to help absorb those costs?
I don't. UMC's maintained the same property tax rate for the past 9 years, and so I really see that staying the same for the foreseeable future.
Finley says UMC's tax rate is one of the lowest in the state.
You look at places like Dallas County or Harris County or Bexar County, where their public hospital districts rely about 50% of their revenues come from property taxes. In Lubbock, it's only about 4%.
But county hospitals aren't the only ones that write off large bills. Lee Turner, Vice President of Mission Integration at Covenant Health, says the cost of what they call uncompensated care runs between $75 to $80 million annually.
I think it's an interesting perspective in terms of taxpayer burden, because really and truly the cost of uncompensated care is borne by all of us. I consider it to be a hidden tax. How do you and I pay for it? Well, we do through our own insurance premiums.
Covenant Health, like UMC, says it works to find programs patients qualify for, often discounting bills considerably, but still the costs are high.
We dedicate 10% of our annual revenue to care of the poor and for community building.
Dr. Christopher Peel is the medical director of UMC's Emergency Center and says the hospital is working to lower the unfunded care costs while still seeing those patients.
We now have an urgent care on site at UMC. And so if we see you in the emergency room for something that's really minor, we'll see you here quickly to make sure that there's nothing we need to do here. And if we deem it appropriate to go to urgent care, we actually get rid of the ER visit. We still see you, document that we've seen you and that you're okay, but we get you over to urgent care where the cost is actually, if it gets billed to you, will be much less than emergency department visit.
As for Hawkins, he is now off the streets and out of the emergency room, living here. An Open Doors Housing First program which provides permanent supportive housing for the chronically homeless. Since making the move, his weekly visits to the ER have decreased, meaning those unpaid bills have as well. Shaley Sanders, KCBD, News Channel 11.